Okay, let's just go ahead and kick off this explainer by acknowledging a universal frustration, one that pretty much all of us have dealt with at some point. You know that feeling where you try incredibly hard to achieve a goal, but you just end up feeling totally stuck, burnt out, and somehow even further away from what you actually want? It's like the harder you push, the harder the world pushes back.
Seriously, have you ever pushed so intensely for a specific outcome? Maybe it was a promotion at work, trying to force a relationship to happen, or hitting a financial milestone that you felt like you literally forced it away. You know the drawl. You put in the crazy overtime, you obsess over every tiny detail, you stress yourself out, and yet nothing happens. Or even worse, the exact opposite happens. Well, it turns out there's a very specific structural reason for this kind of failure. And spoiler alert, it has absolutely nothing to do with your work ethic. To really figure out why this happens, we have to dive into the teachings of Neville Goddard. He was this profound teacher of esoteric philosophies who completely flipped the script on how we go about achieving our goals. His core promise was honestly revolutionary for his time. He proposed that our consciousness, not physical force, not endless grinding, is the actual mechanism that creates our reality. He argued that we really aren't victims of fate, we're just victims of our own underlying beliefs and assumptions. Which brings us to our first major concept today, the paradox of effort, or the idea of force versus yielding. This is where we start breaking down exactly why the whole hustle culture approach so often backfires on us. There is a massive fundamental difference between how we operate in the physical world versus how we manifest in the mental world. Think about it. Physical action relies entirely on force. If you want to move a giant boulder, you got to push it, right? But mental action requires absolute yielding. Goddard taught that trying to change the outside world using physical arguments and brute force without changing your internal consciousness first is just useless surface readjustment. It's literally like rearranging the furniture inside a burning house. The real change absolutely has to happen internally by yielding to a completely new state of mind. So, let's unpack exactly why forcing things causes failure by looking at the law of reverse effort. What absolutely fascinates me here is that this isn't just some abstract mysticism. Modern psychology actually recognizes this exact same phenomenon. Goddard warns us that if you exert extreme effort in trying to control things, you're going to get contrary results. And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. If you are trying so hard to be wealthy, what is your underlying consciousness actually saying? It's screaming, I am poor. Because, let's be honest, you wouldn't be straining and struggling if you already had the wealth. By exerting that desperate effort, you are basically guaranteeing that you'll manifest the exact opposite of what you want. Your deep inner feeling is always going to win the battle against forced willpower. So, the absolute crucial takeaway here is this. You simply cannot force anything externally. Consciousness is the door. In fact, Goddard is super explicit about this, noting that consciousness is the only door to manifestation. You only grow and attract what you are already conscious of being. If you want a branding reality, you can't just smash through the window with physical force. You've got to walk through the front door by completely changing what you are deeply conscious of right now. All right, let's move on to the antidote to all this frustration, the principle of least effort. So, if force doesn't work, what actually does? The answer is a rule that governs pretty much everything in physics, from the elliptical path of a planet right down to a single pulse of light. The universe naturally operates on the path of least resistance, and this translates beautifully to our minds. Goddard teaches that because creation is already finished, meaning every possible state of reality already exists out there, moving from your current state to your desired state actually requires minimum psychological energy. You don't have to build the new reality from scratch, you just have to occupy it. And the psychological equivalent of minimal energy? That's simply assuming you already have it. You just step right into the assumption. To truly wrap our heads around this, we need to understand the law of reversibility. In physics, we know that if heat can produce mechanical motion, then mechanical motion can produce heat, right? They are completely reversible. Well, Goddard applied this exact logic to human consciousness. If achieving your fulfilled wish produces a certain feeling, like intense joy, relief, or deep gratitude, then simply assuming that feeling right now will physically produce the fulfilled wish. You're basically reverse engineering your reality by starting with the feeling of the end result. It's brilliant. This leads us right into our next core concept, entering the state of the wish fulfilled. So, how do we practically do this? How do we enter this state? Well, here's your prep phase. First, you need to construct a single, super simple event in your mind's eye that implies your goal is already achieved. Not the hard steps you took to get there, but an event right after it's done. Imagine a congratulatory handshake, for example. Second, make sure that event absolutely implies fulfillment. And third, honestly, this is the most vital part, you must be the actor, not the audience. You cannot just watch yourself on a movie screen in your mind. You have to look out from your own eyes. You need to physically feel that handshake and hear the person's voice in the first person. I just love this quote from Goddard. To desire a state is to have it. It's such a profound reminder that praying or begging or longing for something from a place of lack only creates more lack. You have to mentally claim the state as yours right now in this exact moment. Like Goddard says, you've got to leave your current conception of yourself entirely behind and completely merge with the new state. It's not about hoping it finally arrives tomorrow, it's about claiming it today. So let's talk about the actual daily practice to get you there, the relaxed assumption. To make this actually work, we have to bypass that noisy, logical, anxious mind of ours. Let's walk through Goddard's specific actionable sequence for bridging your conscious and subconscious minds. Step 1. Immobilize your physical body. You need absolute stillness so you can detach from the loud evidence of your physical senses, which, let's face it, are constantly reminding you of what you don't have. Step 2. Induce a sleepy, soporific state. This naturally lowers your brainwaves and stops your logical mind from arguing with you. And finally, step 3. While you're in that deeply, profoundly relaxed state, you just effortlessly feel the reality of your wish fulfilled. Now, one of the absolute best ways to hold on to this feeling is what's known as the lullaby technique. Once you are in that deeply relaxed, almost floating kind of state, you condense your desire into a single, very short phrase. And you just repeat it over and over in your mind, exactly like a lullaby, until it completely saturates your consciousness and you naturally drift off to sleep. So what exact phrase should you use? Well, Goddard actually suggests adopting an inner dialogue of pure gratitude, just simply repeating thank you, thank you, thank you, as if you're addressing a higher power for having already received your desire. And honestly, this is genius because it completely bypasses the ego's desperate need to force an outcome. I mean, you literally can't force a thank you, right? Gratitude is the ultimate state of receiving. It uses absolutely zero physical effort, but it carries immense reality-shifting psychological power. Which brings us to a pretty provocative final thought to leave you with today. If your desire is already a reality, if creation is genuinely finished, and you simply need to assume the feeling of it, why are you still struggling? Why are you still trying so hard to force it? I want to invite you to just take a deep breath, drop all that resistance, trust the incredible power of your own consciousness, and finally yield to the wish fulfilled.